We begin this afternoon on Capitol Hill, where members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee had a chance to question a top State Department official on why the Trump administration issued an emergency declaration. He did this in order to justify moving forward on a massive arms deal with Saudi Arabia. RT's Rachel Blevins joins me now with all of these details. Rachel, there were obviously some frustrations, and what were they that were expressed during this hearing?
Well, Scotty, members of Congress shared their concerns about why the Trump administration chose to declare a national emergency in order to justify an $8 billion arms deal. And they argue that the only real emergency was that the White House knew it wouldn't get approval from Congress.
It appears as if you've determined that the emergency is that Congress won't agree with you.
No, sir.
Well, you told us that you wanted to do. We didn't approve. And so you declared an emergency.
Last month, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced that the Trump administration had declared a national emergency in order to immediately complete 22 pending arms transfers to Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. The deal was worth more than $8.1 billion, and Pompeo claimed that this was a one-time event. He said the reason the deal was considered an emergency was because of ongoing threats from Iran. And similar sentiments were shared by the Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs when he was questioned by the House Foreign Affairs Committee today.
The process has been in place. We value the process. We're not walking away from the process, but in this particular case, an emergency necessitated a declaration to move forward.
But members of Congress argued that there was not enough of a threat from Iran to justify the Trump administration's refusal to go through the proper channels. They also noted that such a massive arms deal without the proper oversight could create a situation similar to the one in Syria, where the Obama administration justified arming groups of what it called moderate rebels in an attempt to overthrow Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
We've heard reports of arms going into the hands of people we don't want them to. And what guarantees do we have that this equipment won't get into the hands of radical Islamic terrorists like the 5 or 6 different ISIS terrorist groups that are in that region?
As one of the main recipients of this arms deal, there is also concern about how Saudi Arabia will use the weapons it receives. Members of Congress noted that by continuing to provide weapons to the kingdom, Washington is sending the message that it fully supports the war in Yemen, which has resulted in the world's greatest humanitarian crisis. They also questioned the administration's claims that it has attempted to prevent civilian casualties by providing Saudi Arabia with precision-guided munitions.
So let's talk about that targeting integrity. With the next image we have here, this is actually a school bus that was hit by one of these paveways. More than 40 children died when this precision-guided weapon hit a school bus. More than 50 people killed, more than 40 of them school children.
One of the biggest questions that remains following this hearing is why U.S. allies in the region need such a massive arsenal of offensive weapons to defend themselves from Iran. And on that, the State Department official refused to give a straight answer. Scotty?
Well, Rachel, I have to ask you a quick question on this. You know, what were they expecting to come out of this hearing besides just a lot of really good sound bites and information? Is there any sort of result they're looking for?
You know, that's a really good question, and it seems like it's one of those things where members of Congress just wanted to make their voices heard on this, and it looks like they will be moving forward with seeing if it's possible to overturn that decision by the Trump administration to move forward with this deal. But because they did declare an emergency, then there is a chance that it could be too little too late on getting $8 billion worth of weapons to countries like Saudi Arabia.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, it's one of those, did you have to declare an emergency because you knew Congress wouldn't pass it? And that means probably there's nothing Congress can do about it at this point. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia says Iran is behind a Houthi missile attack on an airport. Now, this attack injured 26 people. The Saudi-backed Yemen government has been fighting the Iran-backed Houthi rebels for about 4 years now. For more, we turn to former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Okay, I know you just heard Rachel's Rachel's report, we're talking about everything that was going on Capitol Hill today. Does this have any correlation right now with what's going on between the Houthi rebels and the Yemen war? And does this kind of add fuel to the latest U.S.-Iranian tensions because of our deals with Saudi Arabia?
It's much larger than that. The problem is that it may appear to be for Yemen, but it's my concern that this could be going, these are arms which you won't be able to account for going into the hands of jihadi Salafists that are accumulating right now in Anbar province in Iraq that may be staging to basically conduct a proxy war against Iran in the future. There's no way that the United States can keep tags on where these arms go. We're talking about mortars, we're talking about missiles, we're talking about small stuff relatively, including bombs. But this is a much larger thing, and $8 billion of arms is a lot of arms, and the question is on accountability. It's curious to me, it's not surprising to me, I should say, that the Assistant Secretary of State could not or would not answer that question of why so many arms were needed. But I think what is occurring here is an approach that is evolving toward arming proxies who would then conduct action against Iran should there be any decision made to take action against Iran. In effect, an attack on Iran could become a proxy war. And you have a lot of Shia in Iraq that they would have to go through in order to get to Iran.
Well, on this case, though, as we've been talking, obviously, with the United States and Iranian tensions have been escalating, is it better, is it the same thing as the U.S. arming the Saudis to continue their fight against the Iranians, or is it just as bad if the U.S. directly went against the Iranians?
Well, they don't want to be
the same thing, or is there a difference?
They don't want to be caught doing it directly. I mean, look, the Saudis can't even defeat Yemen, little Yemen, and they've been at it for all these years. To go against Iran, that would be unconscionable. I mean, the fact is that Iran has more firepower and military capability than all of the Gulf cooperating countries combined. And they're much more organized and much more disciplined. And the Saudis wouldn't be able to conduct a direct strike on Tehran. So they're going to work through proxies.
Well, and at this point, Michael, normally when we go into some of these engagements, we partner, we ally with other countries. Mm-hmm. Do we have any allies that are with us in this sort of interaction that's going on between Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Israel, UAE. That's it.
So we're having where's the UK? Where's France? Our normal allies in this?
Yeah, they don't want war in the Middle East. And we see a crescendo building here, and it's evolving. It's not a rapid thing. And while Trump is talking peace on the one hand, you have John Bolton and Mike Pompeo working on the side, trying to get all this other stuff going. Look, that resolution of disapprovals on those 22 items that are going to the Saudis, Congress will pass it. Trump will veto all of them, but there won't be enough in Congress to override that veto, and the arms will go.
Well, and that's the thing, so we have no allies. The president doesn't have Congress in this, so it's basically the White House themselves doing this action.
That's right. What
are the consequences of making a military move this large with just the White House and one branch of government actually promoting it? Well,
it could be that proverbial spark that could ignite the entire Middle East, and then it's going to be, and then with Iran reacting, Iran's reaction will be to bomb oil and gas fields in Saudi Arabia and blockade the Straits of Hormuz, and literally overnight you're going to have global depression.
Well, I'm all for standing by yourself if you're standing for good, but sometimes you have to look around and go, why isn't anybody else standing with me on this? Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.